Hello, everybody. This is Andy again with Clown World Chronicles. That's a mouthful to say. So, people, I can't believe how red pill I'm about to be. My background is, on the left, liberal, more moderate liberal every day as each day passes. I like to say on some of my posts, I understand the libertarian position uh, as each day passes. And so I got this graphic here just to taunt the libertarians that may be watching. It's just a little joke. I really don't mean any offense by it, but yeah, I do understand the libertarian perspective every day as each day passes. I don't understand their perspective 100%. I wouldn't say I would call myself a libertarian, but I drift further that way every day and every year. And the reason why I'm making this video is because September 30th, yesterday, was Canada's National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. And so basically, what that was the federal government of Canada recognizing that September 30th marks the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The day honors the children that were never returned home from and survived residential schools. So basically, what residential schools were, there was a policy, a doctrine by the federal government, instituted by the federal government, to basically kill the Indian and the child. The doctrine was basically to basically civilize Canadian Indians. Um, teach them, Canadian culture, like reading, writing, and so on, and also to Christianize them. So it was basically a policy that the federal government instituted, and it basically snatched 150,000 children from their parents, the people who love them the most, and send them to these residential schools. Now, many of these schools are run by the Catholic Church, but there was other denominations of the Christian Church that did run these schools. And as this graphic would have you believe, that this was some sort of, uh, Catholic Church or other denomination. It was their plot. As you can see, we have the image of the priest there with the crucifix, clearly visible. And so a lot of the narratives around what happened around the residential schools is that this was a ploy of the Catholic Church, and there's a lot of hand wringing about the Catholic Church, and the evils that it did to these children, and a lot of people have lost sight of the fact that this was a doctrine of the federal government of Canada. The Catholic Church didn't institute this. This was not their idea. They were just the enablers. They enabled the residential school system to operate. But this was a government plot. And basically, there's been a lot of hand wringing about this over the last few years because about a year ago, they purportedly found, some unmarked graves. The graves are empty. There are no children. There are no human remains found in those graves. But it just basically, it reignited this issue, right? And as you can see here on the screen, this is the website of Canada's webpage about the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. And nowhere on here does this say that this was a federal government of Canada program. Nowhere does it mention that. And the whole thing about the libertarianism, why I brought libertarianism up, is because if you've studied history, and a lot of people are ignorant to these facts, that the greatest killer in the 20th century, the 1900s, the 20th century, was the bloodiest century probably known to man. The amount of death and destruction that was meted out last century was unprecedented. And the majority of the people that were slaughtered last century were slaughtered by governments. Um, and so that's why when, I say I drift more to the libertarian perspective, because after what we've experienced in the last 2 years, with governments, first of all, not acting to prevent the contagion of this virus, the Kung flu, that was probably developed by governments, as the evidence is suggesting. They let it spread, and then after they let it spread, they, implemented these insane lockdowns to protect basically everybody except the most vulnerable, which were, old, infirm people in, institutions like old age homes, which they let die on massive levels. So, after the events of the last 2 years, the government's just grabbing more and more power. Um, for me, I tend to be drifting more towards the libertarian perspective of things because, having seen what happened in World War One and World War Two, and then with communism, and then now with the Kung flu, it's just the only natural deterrent to governments overreaching and slaughtering vast amounts of people is to give them less and less power, not to give them more power. We've seen what happens when governments have disproportional amounts of power. They tend to act like butchers. I mean, if we look here, if we look at World War One, right? So let's see, World War One. Total number of military and civilian casualties in World War is about 40 million. So we had 20 million deaths, 21 million wounded. Okay? Then we have World War Two. We have an estimate between 40 and 50 million people. And this is just, we're just getting started here. This is like the first half of the 20th century. Then let's have a look at what the dictators have done. So this is World War II here, right? Then we have Stalin, who ends up slaughtering 23 million of his own people. And then we have the heavyweight champion of massacres, which is Mao over here at 78 million. Okay. Then you have Pol Pot. He popularized the term killing fields. He killed about 2 million of his own people. The Kims over in North Korea, they've killed a couple of million people. You got all these people up there. It's about 160 million people, right? So when you hear these leftists talk about, how religion is the biggest killer of all, and that's bullshit. That's just straight out lies. Governments and might I say atheist governments have been the biggest killers, because both Stalin and Mao were fucking atheists, all right, and leftists. So yeah, you got good old Hitler there with Mao and Stalin. Those guys were all leftists. Goebbels was a communist. Mussolini was a communist. Fascism is a communist. Well, it's not a communist, but it's a radical leftist ideology. It's not, right wing. I don't care what anybody tells you. That's just 70 years of revisionist history. So I just find it rich that, we have the government of Canada commemorating, the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, not once mentioning that the, killing the, killing the Indian in the child, that program was a program of the government of Canada. It wasn't the churches who came up with that shit. And so I just find it rich, 2 years after what governments have done, destroying businesses, locking up children, preventing them from socializing properly with their peers, allowing huge swaths of old and infirm people dying in nursing homes and old age care homes. Their anti-democratic, anti-civil rights stances, preventing people from moving freely, mandating this experimental concoction that nobody knows what it's going to do, and preventing you from being able to earn a living if you don't inject yourself with this poison. Like, it's just rich to me that, uh, in this day and age, 2 years after the fact, we're still celebrating this National Day of Truth and Reconciliation when, it was originally a government program that stole 150,000 children from their parents, the people who love them the most, to civilize them, to kill the Indian in the child. And we still pretend like, the government is our friend. The government is not our friend. And that's why I say I lean more libertarian every day, as the day goes by, as I learn more about what governments are capable of and what they've done. And I do apologize the rambling nature of this video. This is my third or fourth video. I'm gonna get better at them. Feel free to leave me some comments in the comments. Let me know what I can do better, what you like, what you don't like, some suggestions. And as obviously, like, share, subscribe. We try to grow a community here. We've got some big things planned. And yeah, feel free to comment. Feel free to leave some suggestions on what you'd like me to tackle next. All right, I think that's about it for today. I'm not going to do any more videos today. We'll do a couple more on Sunday and then throughout the week. But thank you for watching. As always, take care. Peace.